Let me switch directly to the last session of this meeting, dedicated to perspective of the regulatory agencies. PROMS is a multi-stakeholder initiative, and all we are agree that the adherence and the cooperation of the medical agency are very important. So it's my pleasure to introduce the speaker for the European Medical Agency, Dr. Kaisa Immonen. Kaisa Immonen is a patient engagement expert in the Public and Stakeholders Engagement Department of the European Medical Agency. So thank you, Kaisa, to be present with us this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good evening to everyone. I hope you can hear me well and see me well.
Yes.
Great. I wish I could be there in person with you, but it was not possible to travel at short notice. But I'm glad to be able to speak to you remotely from Amsterdam. So my name is Kaisa Immonen, and indeed I work in patient engagement at the European Medicines Agency. I have a background in European health policy, and in fact I used to work in patient advocacy for almost 15 years, working on EU health policy, and I'm now, since February of this year, at the EMA. I'm going to give you a short overview of, let me just see how it goes. There you go. Apologies. So I'm going to give you a short overview of a new initiative we have at the EMA, which I hope is going to be of interest to you, which is the initiative on patient experience data. And I'll explain to you what we mean by that. So I'm going to take you through this and also a brief reflection on how it could be relevant for neurology and for MS. And what we're doing and what we're going to do next, and also how you can be involved. So, first of all, let me start with a few definitions. We are working on what we call patient experience data. By this, we mean data that's collected through different patient engagement activities and methodologies. So they include patient-reported outcomes, but they also include patient preferences, for example, various patient engagement activities that can yield data. And I would like to stress that for us, these data are both quantitative, so PROMS, for example, and PREMS, but also qualitative, and they can be generated by patients themselves. For example, these days, increasingly through the use of wearable technologies, or even qualitative data from activities like focus groups with patients. And once these data are scientifically assessed and qualified as a valid scientific evidence, they become patient experience evidence. You will find all these definitions in a report from a workshop last year, which I will tell you about shortly. But this is just to kind of establish the terminology to start with. Why are we doing this initiative? Well, this is a little bit of background. The European Medicines Network Strategy, which we call with the acronym EMANS, and the Regulatory Science Strategy both have as a key priority to reinforce patient relevance in evidence generation for medicines development. And there is widespread agreement that patients' experience is relevant and important for medicines development, particularly for benefit-risk evaluation, but also other aspects. However, at this time, this kind of data is still not systematically included in all aspects of this, this type of activity. And for example, you will know that the minority of clinical trials collect data on quality of life, for example. So we can also see that this data is relevant when it comes to the downstream decision-making. So looking at the medicine's pathway to the patients, not only in the regulatory decision-making, but then going beyond that in HTA and potentially in value assessments, in health economic assessments and reimbursement decisions. So it makes sense also to try to incorporate that at the regulatory evaluation stage as much as possible. At the same time, there's also global work ongoing at the ICH, which aims for global harmonization. And to these activities, we are also contributing at the EMA. And finally, there has been a call from different stakeholders, particularly from medicine developers, so from the pharmaceutical industry, to give guidance, to have some message from the EMA, because there has been a perception that regulators are not interested in such data and that they do not find it useful. And with this initiative, we want to confirm that regulators are interested in this data. We do find it useful. And we want to answer this call for guidance. I'm not a neurology expert at all. You in the room are the experts, but I just want to share a couple of reflections also on the neurology and MS. And obviously, patients' views and preferences are important here because we are talking about conditions that are progressive, sometimes difficult to understand what it means to a patient to live with a condition and how patients weigh different benefits versus different risks of treatment. Particularly at the evaluation phase, we can consider that the collection of patients' experience data by reliable and validated methodologies can support other data when it comes to the establishment of primary and secondary endpoints. And particularly, I would say, when there is uncertainty from the clinical data. For example, when hard endpoints are not yet mature enough, or when there is uncertainty about to what extent do they really capture the benefit or the risk for the patient. So, as I mentioned, particularly to try and measure better the impact of disease progression, for example. And of course, then once a medicine is authorized and on the market, patient experience data can also be collected as real-world data, for example, from patient registries, and this can generate supportive evidence, for example, on confirming efficacy or identifying safety issues. So again, reminder that PED can also be qualitative, and I will come back to you to invite you to think about how this community of yours could contribute to our work. I want to tell you a little bit of how this came to be. The initiative started last year with a multi-stakeholder workshop. This was in a way the kick-starting event for the Patient Experience Data Initiative. And there is a report which you're very welcome to read. It's on the EMA website, and the image on the slide has a link in case you want to find it. We wanted to have first a common understanding of what patient experience data is, and particularly from the patient community, there was a strong message that it should also include qualitative data, and also that patient experience data should not be seen in isolation, but it should be seen in the context of a whole. So all the data, including the traditional clinical outcomes data, should obviously be patient relevant and meet patient priorities. There were also several challenges identified, and we have put together a number of actions. You can read more in the report, but primarily we identified the need for aligning different decision makers, and we need everyone to be involved, so therefore multi-stakeholder cooperation. The regulatory guidance that I just mentioned, and also the need for transparency, communicating better how patient experience data is actually assessed and how it is used in medicine's evaluation. And then there are other aspects, for example, digitalization and patient-generated data, and everything that's happening right now with big data is a big part of our work. And obviously, this is a field where there is a need for more resources, expertise, and also capacity building, because we are really talking about also quite a lot of methodological work going forward. So we established then this initiative, which is a cross-agency initiative, but also, importantly, a network-wide initiative, because the EMA is not an agency in Amsterdam. It is a network of 27 national competent authorities and the EMA and also the European Commission. And of course, we have a wide network of stakeholders that we work with as well. So we are currently working to enable discussions within the network and develop an overall strategy on how to work this topic, what the priorities should be, and of course, how we collaborate with stakeholders. And at the same time, keeping an eye on this global collaboration as well and the work ongoing at ICH. For this year and next year, we have defined 2 key deliverables. These are not simple deliverables, but the first one, which is really the main one, is to develop a reflection paper on the best EU approach to generate, collect, and analyze patient experience data. I'll tell you in a moment a little bit more about this. And secondly, we want to improve the transparency aspect. So we are currently looking on how we can improve this on the analysis of patient experience data in the EMA's decision-making process. The reflection paper is the main and most important thing that we are working on at the moment. And here we will try to provide advice on what would be the best EU approach to generate and collect this kind of data. It may not be one answer, but we will try to reflect questions and requests received from stakeholders. This is not going to be a guidance document on methodology, but the reason it's called the reflection paper, it's more a paper setting out general framework and principles, for example, on defining patient experience data, setting a scope for the paper, looking at how it can be used and how its value can be established along the medicine life cycle, but also looking beyond to the healthcare continuum, as I mentioned. Then looking at the possibilities for the generation, collection, and analysis of this kind of data. What are the challenges and the limitations? Because this is not going to be, let's say, a silver bullet answer to every regulatory question, obviously. And then to what is the role of scientific advice and qualification of novel methodologies going forward, which may be quite significant. So we have an internal drafting group, which is a cross-agency, multidisciplinary, and we have a network of experts from the national bodies, and of course, stakeholder involvement, as always, is highly important. We are now starting work to draft this paper, and we are trying to develop it for public consultation in 2024, looking at the first half of 2024, but I cannot yet say that that is a firm timetable. As you know, these things may take more time than initially foreseen, but we would definitely like to release it for public consultation next year, and probably after the public consultation period to hold a multi-stakeholder workshop again to look at the results and get views from all the different parties. The second part is transparency, so we will focus on the assessment report in parallel with drafting the reflection paper. And we are looking how to reflect in the European assessment report, which is a report that's published on every medicine authorized in the EU that explains the rationale of why the medicine was approved. We are looking to see how better to reflect the way patient experience data was used, as well as the rationale for its acceptance or non-acceptance in the benefit-risk decision-making. Probably there will be a new section, or there will definitely be a new section in this template that governs the assessment report for description of use of patient experience data. We are still looking internally on how this should be best done. Currently, patient input is included in European assessment reports, but it's not done in a structured way. So sometimes you find it in different parts of the report, and it's not always very systematic. So with looking at the template, we try to make it so it's always there in its own dedicated section. Later on, we will have to look also at how patient experience data or the use of it should be reflected in the product information. This is the summary of product characteristics, the package leaflet, and the labeling. But this is not our current first priority. We will look at it later and focus on the assessment reports first. I want to mention digitalization. I think I don't have a lot of time, but just to for you to know that a big part of our work links to our work on big data and European health data space, because patient experience data obviously can also be real-world data, and it can be patient-generated data. So we have a close collaboration with the big data steering group, and again with patient input in these activities. So to wrap up, what we are talking about here is a new scientific discipline, really, and we will be having complex methodological discussions. We will need to have extensive stakeholder engagement there as well, and we will see how the methodological needs can balance with the needs of the stakeholders. Obviously, patient experience data needs to be robust and validated in order to be truly useful to its full potential. For the moment, we will prioritize these two deliverables on which we've already started work, and it would be really key to have input from all stakeholders, particularly when it comes to the reflection paper. And I hope there will be an appetite in your community to get involved in the public consultation and potentially then in activities that will follow the public consultation and beyond. And with that, I close, and I'm open to answer questions if I can. And you're also welcome to contact me on this email address and send any queries to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Immonen. There is no Q&A plan session. However, I would like to say that definitely I think our initiative is online with the perspective and the point of view you mentioned. I'm very happy to see that. Also happy to note that in fact maybe PRO could contribute to decision making. In some condition, I note. But however, I think it's also our objective really that PRO could contribute to decision making. So I would like to thank you again for your contribution. Thank you, Dr. Immonen.
Thank you very much.